Welcome, everybody, to the Competition Archery Media Podcast, where we explore all things pertaining to competition archery. I'm your host, PJ Riley, and the CAM Podcast is brought to you by O'Neill's Classic Archery. And today we have with us, fresh off his first win in the pro class, Jacob Slusarz. How you doing, Jacob? Thanks for being here.
Doing good. Thank you for having me.
So, has that sunk in yet? First win in the pro class.
Yeah, it's finally sunk in. It took a couple days. I feel back to normal now.
Was your phone like going crazy? I imagine it was.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was after a while you just give up and wait till the next day. At least I did. I couldn't take it anymore.
So Jacob, for those who don't know, just won the Open Pro class at the Matthews Pro-Am, the ASA in Metropolis, Illinois. He went in there in that Open Pro class. Levi Morgan, Dan McCarthy, you know all the names. And Jacob came out on top with some impressive shooting. But we should say, I mean, Jacob, you were saying you felt like you could shoot at that level.
Yeah, I've known that I could do that. It was just a matter of putting it all together. Because I've done it indoors. I've come close in the IBOs. ASA is fairly new to me, but I knew I could do it. It was just a matter of putting a good game plan together and actually executing it and not messing that up somewhere along the lines of the 40 target course.
Darren and I were talking about, Darren Christopher on the broadcast. It was, so you've made the shoot down 2 out of 5 times you've been there, and you're 50% on winning the ones you've made the finals to. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I like those odds. When you say it like that, it sounds awesome.
How difficult is that, though, to shoot that consistently for 2 days? I mean, one mistake and you're done.
Yeah, I mean, it's unforgiving to say the least. It's mentally taxing because you know you mess up. I mean, in ASAs, you can get them back with 12s and whatnot, but it's stressful because you're, again, like you said, you're on the range with all these guys. You know where everybody's at. You know what's going on.
Yeah.
You shoot an 8 or a 5, it's not fun. It's definitely stressful, but it's so rewarding towards the end of a weekend when you could walk off and go, you know what, I didn't make any stupid mistakes. I tried to play the best I could.
Yeah.
And that makes it good.
So Darren also mentioned in the broadcast, he said, you know, I'm sitting there thinking, oh, you know, this is your first time leading the tournament on the big stage. And Darren said, well, Jacob's an accomplished indoor shooter. And he said there, mentally, Darren was saying that's much tougher than what you had to do out there. Do you feel like your indoor game helped you in those situations?
Yeah, because if you can shoot indoors, you can handle the pressure of anything.
Yeah.
And I mean, granted, I think that's all self-induced. I think we all feed into that a little bit. But if you could play the indoor game, especially in Vegas or indoor nationals, let's say, you can handle the pressure of anything, I think.
Yeah.
But don't get me wrong, it's still nerve-wracking out there. You're not like, or at least I'm not immune to that by any means. My stabilizer was shaking.
I mean, so the indoor, I mean, you know, especially in Vegas, I mean, one slip up, boom, you're done. That's it. Forget it.
Yeah, that one took me years of shooting Vegas to finally get into that shoot off. That was a pretty rewarding feeling just itself, because like I've messed that up a lot.
A lot of 899s.
There's been a lot. There's been a variety of 890 somethings. But yeah, there's been enough not 900s.
Yeah.
That it made it feel pretty good.
How many times have you made the shoot off in Vegas?
Once in Vegas, but I made it in that Rushmore Rumble, which is similar enough in format. It was like a replacement Vegas.
Yeah, yeah. When was your 900 in Vegas? Was that this past year?
Yep.
Oh, okay. So you're on a roll here. Was there something that you did within the past year that you think is helping you out, or is it just clicking at the right time?
No, I think ultimately it comes down to taking your beatings and trying to learn from it. Because last year, that season was tough. Like I got beat up. I wasn't doing what I thought I could.
Yeah.
And you just get to a point, you start searching for different answers. You start talking to new people about ways I can change, ways I can get better. Start talking to people about the mental game and start talking to psychologists and people that know about it and find new ways to look at things. Because saying it, just going, well, man, I suck, that doesn't help you.
Yeah, right.
And so once I figured out a way to kind of get a new outlook on things, it started to pick up. And then I made some changes to my process. I have an awesome coach back here that me and him, we get along awesome. We do great work together.
Who is it? Let's give him a shout out.
His name is Mark Myers.
Okay.
He's fantastic. And he knows the way I shoot and the way I operate pretty well. And we just decided that my shot was so relaxed, I couldn't repeat it anymore. I couldn't do it under pressure.
Oh.
And so I got into a more of a, I want to say aggressive shot, but I don't do a lot of movement. So I'm not like a big rotator. I'm not a squeezer with my hand, but I started to get more aggressive because I could repeat it under pressure.
Gotcha.
So those were the two biggest changes. And without those, I think I would still be way back from where I'm at now.
Yeah.
I still have, I'm by no means like perfect right now. But
you shoot
two big things.
You shoot a thumb button or a hinge?
Mostly a hinge.
Okay.
Me and thumb buttons have mixed relationships. Sometimes it's awesome, sometimes it's not.
Yeah. I know that feeling. So, and then I'm guessing you probably like a lot of holding weight?
Yeah, I'm usually around 18 to 20, depending on what I'm doing.
Okay.
Sometimes indoors, I'll get up a little higher. I'll get into like 21, 22 maybe.
Yeah.
Outdoors on like uneven footing, goofy terrain, especially on like the IBO side of things, I don't want to go too high because I can't hold it.
Right.
So typically my 3D bows both this year right around like 18.5 pounds.
Okay.
Which is kind of a happy medium. If I get too low, I can aim the bow awesome. If I get into like the 16, 15 pounds,
yeah, but
I can't make the shot go off and it's not good.
You're just standing there saying nothing's happening.
Well, I'm standing there going, man, I can aim awesome. It'd be awesome if this would go off though. And it never does.
So I want to get into, you're from New York. How old are you and what do you do for a living?
I just turned 23 and I do mold abatement, water damage work, stuff along those lines. Keeps me somewhat busy most of the time.
Gotcha.
Some days I'm not super busy, but
I bet this time of year with those summer rains and stuff.
Yeah, we have our moments about now.
So archery, how long have you been doing that competitively?
Competitively, I started traveling the IBO scene in like 2010, I believe, in the Cub class.
Oh, wow.
And then worked my way up through like the Cub, YMR 13, 14, YMR 15, 17, then into semi-pro, now open pro for the last, I think, 2 or 3 years. I don't remember.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, first one was IBO Worlds in 2010.
How explain about that, people who come in, talk about how that helps coming up through those ranks like that instead of just diving right into the deep end.
Well, you get to learn. I mean, especially in the age restricted classes, like your 13, 14s, your 15, 17s, you're only 13 and 14 for a short amount of time.
Right.
And you're an adult for a really long time. So there's a level of experience you get in those classes and you get to learn so much that I don't understand rushing through that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things I learned from just going from Cub class to 13, 14 that when I got to 15, 17, I wasn't ready for it.
Is that
but
right?
I still learned enough. Yeah, I would get my butt whooped. And then you just start to pick up on tendencies and what you need to work on and where you can get better.
Yeah.
Without riding that out the way that I did, I don't think I would have had the progress that I have now. Like, things have gotten considerably better. And if I had just jumped into, like, let's say a men's open class when I was 16,
Yeah.
I don't think it would have went that well, because I just don't. I think I would have got smoked.
Yeah.
You can only learn so much from that. You have to work your way up. You can't just decide that, hey, I'm shooting a 30-yard stake, I'm going to move back to 50 yards. How hard can it be?
Yeah, right.
It's hard.
Especially in those unknown distance classes.
Right. And that's why the way that I did it, I mean, I went from a 30-yard max to a 40-yard max and then back to a 50-yard. I mean, it just gives you an idea of how the things change and, like, what targets look like. And
Yeah.
it gives you a work ethic. You can develop a practice routine, I think, or at least I did. And you can kind of carry that along.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I'm glad I did it the way I did. Everybody's different. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
There are some kids, I'm sure, that will make me look bad by saying what I did, because they'll prove me completely wrong. But I like the way I did it.
Yeah.
I think it was the best for somebody like me.
For sure. Yeah. That judging distance, boy, that's just a skill that I think takes, for me, looking at it from the outside, just seems like that takes years to hone. I've been doing it for years, and man, I still make those big mistakes where you guys can't make those mistakes.
And I still do. Every once in a while. It's not uncommon for me to make a big mistake by any means. It's just something I've tried to focus so hard on that over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Because I used to just go shoot the bow and go, oh, I can judge yardage whenever. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's not. How hard can it really be? Well, it's really hard.
So you've been spending some time just practicing the judging side.
Yeah, I think you have to.
Gotcha.
I mean, everybody else is. The guys that are winning constantly don't just wing it.
Yeah, right.
But it took a while for me to figure out a way to do it that I think works best for me.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of money, because I had to buy a lot of targets.
Yeah.
I kept screwing a lot of them up, and I wanted to fix that. So,
Well, the IBO one especially has got to be a pain, because there are so many of them that they could choose from.
yeah, I mean, I think I have 17 Reinhardts. So I have a handful of them. I think I have like half the course. But what's really frustrating is when you still shoot 8s and 5s on targets that you have.
Yeah.
You're like, that's why I bought them, so that wouldn't happen.
For indoor, how long have you been shooting that game?
Since I was little, but I think the first big tournament I went to was NFA Indoor Nationals in 2013, I believe. It's been a while.
Yeah. Well, what's your best finish there at Indoor Nat? Do you shoot that one every year? I think I've seen your name pretty regular. Yeah.
Because once you get into the shoot-off, if you don't win, you fall into these big ties. I think the best I've done there was tied for 4th.
Gotcha. You know how many times you've made the pro shoot-off?
3 times. The last 3 years. Yeah, the last 3 years in a row.
Gotcha. Man. And how does that pressure, the Vegas final line, NFA Indoor National final line, compare to ASA finals there, just what we did in Metropolis?
I guess it depends where you are in those ASA finals, let's say, because the nerves were pretty prominent in Illinois, just because I was in a new position. I'd never been there before. You don't really know how to handle it, or at least it's a learning experience.
Yeah.
To me, they're not all that much different. You're still nervous.
Yeah.
You know what's on the line. You know what's going on. I honestly have a harder time indoors during like the qualification rounds, let's say, than the shoot off.
Oh, okay.
Because I really enjoy the shoot off environment. It's just fun. Granted, you're still very nervous, but I work so hard to get there that when I'm finally there, I just love that experience. I love the feeling.
Yeah.
But Vegas was another story because I was you're nervous in Vegas. Everybody's nervous. But I was still loving the moment. I mean, you're looking around, there's 1,000 people standing there watching you.
Heck yeah.
Like, you got to love it. You got to love being there.
That's
Indoor
awesome.
Nationals this past year, I wasn't too nervous, but I still missed. So that was user error, let's say. But Metropolis had me pretty rattled.
I just watched it back. I forget the sequence. You shot. What was did you shoot an 8 in the finals?
Yeah, in the 4th target.
Okay. And then you came back with, I know you ended on a 14. That was on the Leopard. No, you shot a 12. No. That's right. You shot the 12 on the Leopard. Yeah.
14 was on that wolf.
The wolf.
The howling wolf. Yep.
Because your 8 was on the deer right before that?
Yep.
The longest one.
Yeah, that's when nerves caught up to me. It was good beforehand. I was anxious. Let's say I was nervous beforehand, but I felt confident. And then when I got into the shoot off, I'm like, all right, this is good. I know what I'm doing. And then I got to that deer and it was like, uh-oh, I'm nervous now. Like it just happened, like snap of a finger. I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be tough.
No kidding.
And I got on that deer, and that deer isn't that big. And when you get him out to 50 yards or 48 yards, whatever he was, he doesn't look big at all.
Right.
And that pin hit down by the 12, and it was moving all over. I'm like, just go off. And it kicked right, and I'm like, oh, that's not good. And then after that, it was like, that was my come to reality moment. I'm like, all right, you got to not be nervous right now. You got to just get over it.
Yeah, I think it was 47. It was like 47.3. I ranged it beforehand. I think it was like 47.3. And they tucked it, over that little hill, so you couldn't really see the feet, and it looked tricky to me.
I knew he was long. I think I shot him for 48. I'm like, just put that near the 12 and you'll be okay. I'm like, you'll be fine. Just put it near it.
So I know you're up there in New York, where Katie Bordwell's up there as well. I know you guys all know each other. So talk about how, she shot that thing 14, like inside out.
Yeah, when she did that, I said to the guy standing next to me, I'm like, I am not doing that. I'm like, I am not ready to do that. I'm not a chance. Like, no, not unless absolute worst case scenario I need to, but I ain't planning on it.
She was she had no choice but to do that. It wasn't, she was either in it or out of it. It didn't matter, but I'm sure that's a different feeling. But I got to imagine, I was thinking about what it must feel like for you sitting there, and all of a sudden there comes Dan McCarthy and Levi hitting those 14s and 12s. It's like, oh man, come on.
And I knew that was coming. I think everybody knew that was coming. Those guys are just too good. And that shoot-off wasn't, I don't want to say it was easy, but it was on the closer side of things. There were a lot of targets that were fairly close. And I'm like, there's no way they're not going to go at him. Like, there's just no way. And so I said to to Buddy holding the umbrella for me, I'm like, I'm going to give up the lead at some point, just with the way the targets fall.
Right.
Like, because they're starting on some closer ones or here, like whatever they're doing. I'm like, at some point, I'm not going to have the lead, but as long as I can get it back, I'll be okay. And I think it took one target for me to lose it. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that's about right.
Oh man. On that last target, now all you needed to do was hit the 10 on the Leopard to win. Did you know that?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And you hit the 12. Were you aiming at the 12?
I would love to say absolutely, but I was aiming center 10, and it went off down at that side, and I was like, man, I hope that's good. But and it made me feel better when I watched it back and I saw that it hit the top of the 12.
Yes.
I'm like, okay, at least I was somewhat close to center 10. Because if it had just barely hung the 10 line, I would have been like, man, that was really bad.
I really missed that one. Man.
There was no, granted, I'm glad I hit it. I'm glad it worked out the way that it did. It was just a matter of like, there was no real reason for me to aim hard at it.
Right.
And I wasn't going to take that risk. I'm like, I felt confident in the number just because I got to listen to 4 other guys shoot it.
Yeah.
So I got to kind of to play off of that, but I wasn't going to get courageous enough to just put the pin right on it and shoot it. I'm like, I have the whole 10 ring to use. I'm going to use it.
Once you hit that thing, what did that feel like? Because I'm sure you knew it as soon as it went off, that it was at least going to be in the 10.
I was really hoping. It's crazy because when I think back on it, it felt like it took forever for me to like figure out that it hit, that it was good.
Oh, really?
Because I heard a guy in the front row say, "Ooh, he got it," and I'm like, "Got what?" I don't know what I get. But so it felt like it took forever for that to kind of hit me, and then it was just awesome. But when you watch it back, it took like no time at all.
Yeah.
It was just the word I used in the post shoot off interview was the best, overwhelming, because I wasn't. I think you have to be ready to win to actually win.
Yeah.
And I was like sort of ready, but when the moment hit me, I was like, man, I can't believe I did it. As confident as you are, like people can be in themselves, I think there's always, especially the first time you win something, I think there's always a part of you that's like, man, I did it. I actually did it.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt really good leading into it mentally. I mean, you're anxious, you're a little nervous, but I think that's normal.
Yeah.
But I never felt that I wasn't going to win.
Okay.
And that's new to me. Normally I'm questioning everything and I'm like, what could go wrong? What happens if something does go wrong?
Yeah.
But even when I think after the second target, I was losing by 2 points or whatever it was.
Right.
But I never felt like I wasn't going to win. Even after the 8, I was like, just hit this 14 and we're okay. And that was a reassuring feeling in the back of my head.
Yeah.
And that's just that comes with, I think that comes from getting beat up a lot. Like you learn to deal with adversity in some ways. You learn to kind of overcome in the best way that you know how. And I mean, and granted, that wolf, I decided 3 targets before I was going to shoot at it. I'm like, why not? I know how far it is.
Yeah.
I mean, if I had 12 that deer and didn't really need the 14, maybe I don't. But I think before I shot the turkey, I'm like, all right, I'm going to shoot the 14 on the turkey and the wolf because I'm not doing it on that long deer.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man. That's incredible. Yeah, I guess, like you said, odds are that you're going to get beat. I mean, statistically, you're going to get beat more than you're going to win. And I guess if you can't deal with getting beat, you're never going to win because you're just going to get beat.
When I was coming up, I had moved out of Weimar 15-17 in IBOs. I went into semi-pro, and I was pretty successful in that class, but I carried a different mentality. I was pretty hard on myself, and if I wasn't, I could always find something negative about a round, regardless what it was, whether it was good or bad. I always had something to pick at, just trying to get better, trying to push myself. And I'm like, and I knew in semi-pro, I had a 2-year plan. I said, after 2 years, I want to be ready. I'm going to jump into open pro. And I was just so like brutal. It's a double-edged sword because you're driving yourself to be better, but you're also putting yourself down.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work. It catches up to you. And so I had to go seek people out. I read a lot of books. I read enough things that just kind of told me what I was doing wasn't going to work. It was going to be my downfall.
No kidding.
And I really did. I reached out to a sports psychologist, something that I don't think a lot of people think about.
Yeah.
And it just kind of opened up new avenues for me to look at things. And it's like you said, everybody gets beat at some point or other. There's too many guys. There's too much talent.
Yeah.
You're going to get beat. And like we talked about earlier, putting 2 days together that are good enough to get you to win every time is impossible. It's just not. It's not even sort of possible. You're going to have an off weekend, off day, whatever it may be. It could just be an off target.
Yeah.
That's all it takes.
Well, yeah, right.
So I had to figure out how to deal with getting beat and not just being angry. I had to figure out how to deal with it.
That's what amazes.
Don't get me wrong.
Well, that's what amazes me when I think about, Dan McCarthy's run of 8 in a row. I'm like, come on, 8 tournaments somewhere in there. He didn't have an off day, or Levi Morgan winning 12 in a row shooter of the years. Somewhere in there, he didn't have an off weekend. How is that possible?
It's incredible to think about. I mean, both are so insanely impressive. It's not even like, it's incredible.
Yeah.
It just shows that whatever they're doing obviously works, but it speaks more volumes for them, because mentally to handle that, you have to be super solid. I mean, because you're telling me those guys didn't feel pressure thinking about that? I mean, there's no way. But, and especially with the field of guys that are around now.
Right.
I mean, there's however many guys a weekend that can go out and win. Easily.
Yeah.
Realistically, I think if you walked up into the Open Pro class and took bets on who was going to win Metropolis, I don't think my name wins that like draw. So, I mean, it's just, there's so many guys that can come out and win.
Yeah.
To go on an 8 tournament streak or a 12-year streak of shooter of the year is just, I mean, that's incredible.
Crazy. So with you working, how much do you get to practice archery in a typical week?
Every day.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yep, every day. And now with all the targets I have, I really practice on those a lot. I have a set schedule. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I just shoot targets.
Okay.
Just because I think that's how I judge yardage the best, is target recognition and target size.
Gotcha.
So I practice really hard at 40 yards, 45 yards, 50 yards, because those are just brackets I can use the best.
Yep.
For ASAs, it's tough, though, because I don't have Mackenzie's.
Oh,
so
okay.
My practice I have to alter it a little for ASAs. So what I'll do is, well, let me just say, for an IBO, I practice on those targets 3 days a week. That's all I do is shoot. And then on the off days, so Tuesday and Thursday, the Rod and Gun Club I belong to has about 50 acres of woods that anybody can use. So what I do is I'll pick a target out of my 17, I'll bring it over and I'll walk it around the woods, I'll put it down and I'll walk around and judge it. And that gives me an opportunity to practice my ground judging. And that's what I have to do more for ASAs, because I don't know those targets well.
Yeah.
I kind of know them. I can see where to aim, but I don't know size.
Right.
So, like, I can't just look out at a target and go, yeah, that's 47 yards just because of the way he looks. It just doesn't – I don't know them that well yet.
Yeah.
But so leading into Illinois, I just decided to practice ground judging a lot more because I knew I was going to need it.
So you're talking about like breaking the ground down in increments?
Yeah, what I do is I do it 2 different ways. I find a halfway point, and then I double it. Okay. Which that one's been really good this year. It flip flops a lot. Some years that one's not good, and some years it is. This year it's worked really well. And then my other one is 10-yard increments.
Okay.
I'll start at 20 yards, go 20, 30, 40, whatever he may be past that. But I've tried to get away from ground judging more because it's too easy to get fooled.
Yeah.
Especially on IBO sides, because you deal with a lot of terrain, a lot of stuff that just takes the ground away from you.
Yeah, there's angles, up, down, gullies, stuff like that.
It could just be shooting over a log. It's something as simple as that. You lose however many yards, and if you just don't see it on the ground, right, it's not good.
Well, I mentioned it in the broadcast, and I'll mention it again because it still impresses me that you, on the first day, you had a equipment failure on your site, and so you had to make up 3 targets, after everyone was done shooting. So I was there, so I walk around with you, and it was 3 long ones. There was a long coyote. I don't know how far that thing was. I now know the hyena was 49. And then I think it was a deer. And you hit 2 of those 3, you hit 12s, including that long hyena that was inside out 12. And I'm thinking, I mean, there wasn't a ton of people, but there was a couple of us just standing around watching, but you were the only one shooting. I mean, if there was attention, it was on you there. And that 3-target run, it was like 12, 12, 10. I thought, holy cow, that's pretty good shooting there. But you said you felt kind of nervous in that 3-target run.
I did. I mean, I walked up. The first target I had to shoot was that coyote, and he wasn't close.
No,
he was not. Who he was, but there was like 47, give or take a couple either way. I don't remember.
It was out
but
there.
I'm like, man, that target. This is not fun. Like, what is going on? And I shot that one. I'm like, man, that was pretty good. That hit pretty close. And then I get through him, and I'm like, all right, I need something to kind of like be soft. And I walk up to a 49-yard hyena, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's getting better. And that one, I just was like, I knew that target never looks far to me. I've shot a bunch of 5s on that target low.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not doing it again. I'm putting a lot of number on this hyena just because. I don't care. And I like poured it on him and said, I'm going and hope for the best. I can't really miss too bad either way. And it fell in, and everybody started saying I hit the 12. I'm like, for real? I hit it?
I went down. Well, that's the target that we did for Shot of the Week. I'll tell you, I judged that thing for 44, and I thought I was too high. I was going to cut numbers, and Dan McCarthy was like, I wouldn't cut any. He didn't know my number, but he was like, I wouldn't cut any yardage. Whatever your guess is, I wouldn't cut yardage. But then when I went down to the target, there were almost, I couldn't find any arrow holes high. Everything was either in it or low.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, I shot a low 8 on him in London, and I did the same thing you did. I misjudged him by a lot. And I'm like, I just was like, oh, I think in London he was close to 50. I think he was about the same distance. And I'm like, I don't think he's that far, but I'll aim at the upper just because I could see it and whatever.
Yeah.
I aim at the upper, and I break a good shot near the upper, and I hit the 8-line low, and I'm like, wow, he's really far. And so I'm like, I'm not doing that again. I need to learn from that mistake.
Yeah, man. I had never shot that target before, so kind of like you were talking about, you don't know the targets. I had never shot that target before, so I had no frame of reference. I think I do a little bit of judging like you in just target recognition.
Yep.
But
what made me the most nervous was I didn't get to listen. And I think I said that to you on the range. I didn't get to hear an arrow fly, because if you hear an arrow fly and it sounds like it takes forever,
yes,
it's a pretty good indication of what's going on. And I would have really liked to have heard one.
I didn't. I mentioned that to Dan McCarthy because as soon as my arrow went, I was like, man, that took longer to get there than I thought. I couldn't see the arrow. I was like, that was low, wasn't it? So I was like, whew, that should have hit.
And it was just like, I walked up and I was like, man, this is, just get through this. Just shoot a 10 and move on. Like, this is, I didn't even know what the next target was, but I'm like, it's got to be better than this one. Like, it just has to be.
Man. So, okay. So you get your first pro class win. So now, like, what is what's that like mentally now? Like you said, you'd never been in that position before. So now looking ahead to, well, you have an IBO, what, next weekend? 2 weeks?
I think 2 weeks. 2 weeks away, I think.
2 weeks away.
It's coming up relatively soon.
So has your mentality changed at all as far as approaching these tournaments now?
Not really. I mean, now I know I've proven to myself that I can do it. But realistically, no, nothing's changed. I'm still the same. I still have good days. I still have bad days. I can still miss. I can still hit them. It was just a matter of now I have the confidence to know, like, hey, I really can do this.
Yeah.
I belong there. And I think that's the moment I needed, was just to be like, you know what, I really do belong here.
Yeah.
And I mean, granted, that doesn't mean it doesn't mean anything really by that, but I just mean like, I'm good enough to be here.
Yeah.
I needed to prove that to me, even though I knew it. I mean,
for sure.
I've done it in other venues, and I know I can go out and shoot good scores, but when you're not doing it, it's like, do I really belong here?
Yeah.
But now my confidence has gone up. I mean, I feel good about everything.
That's awesome.
Realistically, nothing's changed. I could make a mistake. I could shoot good again. I don't
know. One thing I appreciated was you had said after your second round, you were like that you could feel yourself saying, hey, don't do anything stupid. You don't need this one. So, just play it safe. And I guess I appreciated that mentality that you were able to, because you said if it were up to you, you'd just aim at them all.
Well, yeah, that was my issue with ASAs when I first got, still my issue. It was, but like my game plan at the first ASA I ever went to was, if it's got a 12 on it, I'm shooting at it. And it didn't go well. And it's just a matter of like, if I walk up to a javelina and I go, I have no idea how far this is, but I'm going to shoot at the lower 12. Well, that's just not smart.
Right, right.
Do that. I still did it. I mean, the first target of the second day, I walked up to a long javelina. It was our first target, and I'm like, I think he's 47, but he could be 49. I'm going to shoot it for 47 and aim at the 12. And I shot an 8 low. I'm like, yeah, okay, don't do that. That was dumb. Why did you do that?
Man.
And it puts you in a position of like, okay, now I got to get that one back. And so then I shot at the next target, which was like a 45, 46-yard bore that I didn't really want to shoot at. But I'm like, you just gave an 8 back.
Yeah.
I've got Levi Morgan, Jacob Marlowe, and Sam Smith in my group that aren't giving points back. And I'm like, yeah, okay, you got to get one back.
Yeah, what's that like shooting in the peer group then the second day? I've heard folks saying, when you're in that one, you have a lot better arrows to aim at, but then B, you may be blocked out of some things that you would want to shoot at.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy the peer groups and the way that works. I think when people do the best is when they're being pushed by other people.
Gotcha.
I mean, and if you're shooting with those guys, you're going to be pushed.
Yeah.
You're not going to you're not going to run away with the group. Like, that going into it.
Right, right.
And I mean, realistically, with that, there's 2 12s in play. Chances are you're going to have something to aim at, but you always run the risk of glance outs. I mean, it just happens.
Right.
I've gotten to the point of just saying, kind of throwing caution to the wind and going for it. I'm like, for me to actually hit that arrow and kick out of it, I have to do a lot of things right. I'm going to take my chances. And
yes. Sometimes
it works, sometimes it doesn't. But if there's an arrow in the lower or the upper, I'm like, what am I going to do? Not aim at it?
Yeah.
No, I'm going for it. I just got to figure out which one I think I can hit.
What do you consider yourself, or do you consider yourself like an indoor archer or a 3D archer? Do you consider yourself, hey, I do them all, whatever?
I've always considered myself a 3D archer.
Gotcha.
The last couple of years, I wasn't doing good. I was starting to think maybe I was more of an indoor guy. But I'm a 3D guy. That's what I enjoy more. That's what I like to do. Indoors is fun to a point.
Yeah.
It makes you good at a lot of things, but 3Ds is where I like to be.
That's what you like. Have you shot Redding? Yeah. I don't know that.
I like the idea of that shoot, but I've never been like really anxious to get to it. It's not even the distance. I mean, obviously it's far away, but at that point, it's always early May. There's IBOs going on. I mean, granted, next year I'll be doing all the ASAs is my plan.
Okay.
So I'll have that. And then in May, that's New York's turkey season. So I'm usually turkey hunting. So
priorities.
Yeah, I mean, I love tournament shooting, but when it's hunting season of any kind, like turkey season and deer season especially, that's what I'm doing. I mean,
so what does the rest of the year look like for you? There's 2 more IBOs, 1 more ASA. Is that the extent of your season then till indoor starts?
Yeah, that's the plan. I don't do any indoor stuff like at the later end of the year. I mean, I think there's a handful of shoots in like December.
Yeah.
I think after these next 3 3D shoots, my first shoot back will be Lancaster.
Gotcha. Yeah. So when do you start? Like, okay, obviously you're bow hunting through October. Are you still target shooting then, just to keep that? Or do you set the target bow away and then pick it up at some point?
Usually I put it away for a little bit. I use that time more so as granted, I'm obviously getting ready for hunting season, like you said, but I need more of a mental break.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm alone there. I think other people feel the same way, but at least I need a break.
For sure.
Just because if I started indoor shooting in September, let's say,
yeah,
and by the time we get to March for indoor nationals, I do not want to be shooting indoors anymore. I would be so anxious for 3Ds or any other kind of shooting that it wouldn't be fun anymore. So what I typically get my indoor bow kind of rough together in the beginning of September, and then I put it down. Gotcha. That way I'm not coming back to a blank, like I'm not coming back to a starting point. I have it roughed in, and then I'll start shooting more around like mid-November or end of November. Gotcha. And then start to kind of ramp up through December at that point. But no, I don't start right after IBO Worlds or the ASA Classic or whatever. I can't mentally handle it. I'd be shot.
I think it's Steve Anderson who always I see online telling people when they start posting photos of 300s, he's like, you can't, it's too early for posting them indoor scores. You can't post that yet.
Yeah. I can't start that early. It just gets so unbearable for me by the end. Like if I'm in New York and it's like 10 degrees outside and I still would rather go shoot outside, that's a problem.
So I'm guessing on your radar, I'm guessing you'd like to win Vegas Indoor Nationals. What are the things out there that you set as your goals for things you'd like to do?
At some point or another, I'd like to win a little bit of everything. But I try to take my goal setting. I try to be as realistic as possible.
Yeah.
And I try to do it in like progressive steps. Cause if I just, like leading into Metropolis, the goal for me was to make the shoot-off. It wasn't to win. Okay. If you haven't made a lot of shoot-offs, how do you win?
Yeah.
You can't. It's just, if you make unrealistic goals, it's not going to get better.
Right.
So I try to do it in a progressive type way. And I said, well, just make the shoot-off. That'll be a stepping stone. Then we can move on.
That makes sense.
But with the win, it's still the same. I mean, like I said, nothing's changed. My goal setting is still the same of let's put good rounds together at certain events and work our way into winning.
Yeah.
So like in the IBO stuff, I've made those shoot-offs now. Now I'm going to start setting the goal more towards winning just because I think I'm ready to. Indoor stuff is always the same for me. It's make the shoot-off.
Yeah.
And then once you do that, once I do that more, I think I'll lean towards the winning part. But it's so, and that's something I still have to work on. I'm still not quite there yet of granted, every tournament I go to, I want to win.
Sure.
But you have to tell yourself that you can win, and you have to make it your goal to win.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's where I'm still learning, because it's not like my goal is like, oh, we'll make the shoot off. Well, then once you make the shoot off, then what?
Yeah, exactly.
Good weekend. But I tried to, because when I was younger, it was just the goal was always to win. Well,
yeah.
When you don't win, what can you work on?
Right.
What can you take away? What can you learn from? And it just began to be so miserable.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And so now I look at things a little bit differently, but IBOs, I want to lean more towards making like a podium, let's say, because I need to do that. In indoor stuff, the same thing, because I haven't podiumed indoors or at IBOs yet. Well, okay. IBOs in like pro class or so that's the direction I think I should focus. But
do you feel good, like looking back at when you started competition archery up to now? Do you feel like, hey, okay, yeah, I see progress and I see it being good progress? You know, obviously it can always be better, but does it seem like, all right, yeah, this is going the right way?
Yeah. I mean, like you said, obviously there's things I wish I could do. There's tournaments I've lost that I wish I could get back. But overall, I think I'm moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
There's things that obviously if I could go back, I would do different and whatnot. But I also I'm still fairly young.
Yep.
I still got some time. I like the way things are going, but I also don't want to go like I said, you can't set unrealistic goals.
Right.
So I believe every tournament I can win, but the goal for an IBO will be to make the podium. And if I can do that, like if I could make podiums consistently, make shootouts consistently, the wins are going to be there.
Yeah.
I think that's where I need to get I need to get the consistency down before I start saying I'm going to win everything.
Gotcha.
And that's I guess as a harsh realist, that's where my head's at. But I like the way things are going, obviously. Indoors, I want to start focusing on getting that first big indoor win because I've been close.
Yes.
I've been there. I've been in those situations to be close. I mean, I think back to the Rushmore Rumble going, like I walked into that shoot-off and I'm like, if I could make it 5 rounds in this shoot-off, I think I'm going to win.
Yeah.
And I think I got eliminated in like the 8th round. I'm like, when do shoot-offs ever last this long? You've got to be kidding me.
That one did take forever.
Yeah, I walked out of that building and I'm like, I have never seen a little X shoot-off like that go that long. But I really thought after 5 rounds I would win.
Yeah. Oh, man.
And I would just I put myself there to win.
Yeah.
It's just, I got to just kind of put it away. And that's something that's definitely within reach, I would think.
All right, folks, that is another episode of the Competition Archery Media Podcast. Jacob Slusarz, first off, congrats on your first pro win. And again, thanks for being with us here today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, folks, the Competition Archery Media Podcast, you can find that on all the platforms, wherever you find your favorite podcast. Thanks for joining us today.